You are here with By the Cover. Today I'm going to be reviewing Shift by Hugh Howey. This book was 570 pages and took me 3 days to read. I would rate this a 4 out of 10. This review may contain spoilers, so if you do not want to hear those, click off now. The synopsis: a prequel to Wool, exploring how the underground silos were built and populated. As far as my likes with the book, in the first 70 pages there were 2 very small snippets that were interesting. Both were in the Troy storyline. I thought the ending line on page 81 was absolutely brilliant. Shift has 3 different parts, and in each part it tells 2 different stories from 2 different characters. In part 1, after page 70, I thought that both stories got more interesting, and so I was invested in both of them by that point. The twist in part 1 was awesome. I loved the conclusion of the mission storyline. Great chapter with an excellent ending. I liked seeing more of the solo storyline and backstory, but for the most part that was kind of boring. And I also liked seeing the other end of the conversation between Donald and Lucas. As far as my dislikes, I absolutely loved Wool. That was an almost perfect book for me. But this is a prequel. Prequels in general tend to be less interesting because you already know the future events. You're just filling in the blanks with past events. I was looking forward to continuing the storyline with the characters in Wool, and I didn't really get a lot of that. I got an entirely new cast of characters that we get to follow. None of these characters in the prequel were super compelling. They were more just there to drive the story. They didn't feel like they had the depth or complexity of the characters in Wool. Another big problem I had with this one was the pacing. Like I said, in each part of the book we follow 2 different characters. Almost every single chapter, not always, but most of the time, we switched from one character to the next character and then back again until that part was done. And what this did really was any kind of pacing or excitement that was built up with one character, you would get to the end of the chapter, it would end on some type of cliffhanger, and then you would have to read a chapter about somebody in a completely separate event. All the tension was just killed at that point. The pacing of this book was doomed from the start with that kind of structure. It was already a slow burn to begin with. Any kind of excitement to get me interested in reading more, it would have been nice to keep that momentum going. Unfortunately, that just didn't happen. I almost DNF'd this book before page 70. From page 1 to page 70, aside from the 2 kind of interesting moments that were in there, the rest of it was complete nap fuel. I was ready to fall asleep. I also think that this tells a story that I don't know needs to be told. I haven't read book 3 in the series, so I don't really know how this concludes. It's like giving a big history of a villain. Sometimes it's more interesting just to leave that to the imagination. I did not like the way or the reasoning behind why the silos are the way that they are. It didn't make a lot of sense. I did enjoy and found fascinating the technology aspects. I kept thinking there was going to be more behind why they did what they did, and there really was not. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense. We go through portions where we do shifts. The start of a shift is pretty much the exact same basic process, and having to see this multiple times done over and over and over is really boring, excessive, and we don't need to go through it. Overall, didn't really enjoy this one. I thought the plot was pretty weak. I thought the pacing was extremely weak. I didn't love the characters that we got introduced to that we hadn't already met from the first book. I also thought there isn't really a good antagonist in this book. The only person you root against really isn't that bad. The entire system was put in place for a stupid reason. It didn't have a lot of emotional impact because I didn't really care for any of these new characters. I still think the atmosphere and the world was great. I thought the ending was pretty decent. Overall, this was a really, really weak entry in this series, I think. I hope that Dust is a lot better. So that's about it. We'll catch you later.